then maybe we can make it a permanent thing. So I did it. I quit nursing and I went to work for him. And it was a great relationship. We had a very warm and very respectful friendship. I liked him a lot personally. I spent some time being very angry with him, but this was mostly after he died, that he had, during his years at Project Blue Book, had hindered or injured so many people in their lives by explaining away their experiences and telling them that, no, they didn't see what they saw. It was Venus chasing the moon. It was the swamp gas. It was an airplane. It was a weather balloon, whatever. But he was hired to be the debunker, and he was doing his job, and he did a good job. But I was very angry about that because at the end of his life, the last thing he said to me was, I have had my own experiences. Now, during the 6 months, I would periodically ask him, have they contacted you yet? Have you seen a ship yet? You know, just kidding around, and we just joke about it. But he was very serious at this point, and when he looked at me, he had that knowing look in his eyes. I've had my own experiences. And he took it to his grave, you know. Nobody else knew that I know of. Maybe Mimi knew it, his wife. But,
to back up a little bit, he sent you out to cover a conference in Laramie, Wyoming, is that right?
Yes. It was a UFO conference of contactees and investigators. And it was held at the University of Wyoming, and Leo Sprinkle was the host. He was a professor of psychology at the university. He was also a hypnotist. He would put people under hypnosis and take them back and see if they'd had any contacts, if they'd had any abductions. There had been a little bit of criticism about the way in which he did this, and they weren't sure whether it was totally professional. Or he said, why don't you just go up there and meet Leo, check it out, meet some of the other people. He said, I think you'll enjoy it, because I enjoyed the personal side of the whole UFO scenario, and the metaphysical and the spiritual aspect of it too. So I went, and
what you said before was that Hynek was very into the nuts and bolts.
Oh yes, very definitely. Very concerned about his credentials. Didn't want those being marred in any way. So was very tight-lipped, played everything very close to his chest. And if he had an opinion, he'd keep it to himself, pretty much.
Okay.
Unless it had to do with the nuts and bolts, and he wanted tangible proof. You had to either see the ship, take a picture of the ship, touch the ship, have some kind of radiation from the ship, but those kinds of nuts and bolts, yeah.
Uh-huh. And when you were working for him, did you ever see pictures or photographs of UFOs across your desk?
Saw a lot of them. Saw a lot of them, yes.
Okay. And
old ones, you know, from years and years back, where the film was bad, very grainy film. Yes, lots of UFO pictures.
And did you ever? Because you also would file documents for him. Is this right? So did you ever come across, I don't know, information about Roswell or that kind of thing?
Well, we came across a lot of documents that were declassified. Had been at one point top secret, but about 7/8 of the document would be blacked out, inked out, and you'd get maybe a half a sentence here and a half a sentence there. So it really didn't mean a heck of a lot. I did see a list of the names that were in Majestic 12.
Do you recall those names?
Oh, well, one of them was Rockefeller. That was a name I recognized. I might recognize some names. It seemed to me there were a couple of admirals, and maybe Brzezinski was one of the names. But we knew that President Eisenhower had a meeting with the aliens at one of the Air Force bases. I think it was Holloman.
When you say you knew, meaning you and Hynek, or Hynek made you aware of this, or how did that work?
I'm very reluctant to say that Hynek ever said anything like that. Mm-hmm. It was more Tina and Brian and me, and all the people that came through the center, all the information that we picked up from people that came through the center. We were aware that Eisenhower had met with the aliens, and I believe it was at Holloman Air Force Base, and that was back in the 50s. If you've read Alternative 3, that's enough to put a crack in your cosmic egg about the government, being a benevolent government. But
was Alternative 3 something that Hynek would have also been aware of?
Oh, I think very definitely. Because in 1960, and he was very much involved with the Air Force then, in 1960, that's when Alternative 3 took place. All those scientists got together, of which he was a scientist. Now, whether he was actually involved in any of their deliberations, I'm not sure.
Now, what about Jacques Vallée? Because you said, is this right? He was one of the people that visited Hynek?
Yes, he did. They were very good friends.
Do you think that he was? I don't know. Maybe I'm sort of.
I don't know about Jacques. Jacques was very prominent in the UFO field. Did a lot of writing. Very personable, very important in France. Of course, he was French, but living in the United States. And they did go to a high-level UFO conference in Paris that summer of '85. He and Hynek, and it was the United States, the French, the Japanese, and the Russians that met that summer. I was never told anything dramatic that came out of that meeting, but the French were way ahead of us. They had already put out a booklet to the civilian population, what to do if you come across a UFO parked, in the field.
Now, you told us an anecdote about Jacques Vallée. Can you repeat that for the camera? In other words, something about that he was upset with Hynek over the swamp gas situation?
The story went, and this came during a conversation with Dr. Hynek and Jacques, and I was sitting there, was that they were reminiscing about the swamp gas episode, and that Jacques was upset with Hynek because he had gone on camera and had said, "This is swamp gas," and he said, "Why didn't you call me? Why didn't you? I would have come, and we could have done this thing together."
In other words, he could have thought of something differently. Was that the implication?
That was the implication, that it could have been done a lot better than it had.
That swamp gas was a poor excuse for it. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that was one incident.
And then some of the other people that came to visit Hynek while you worked for him, do you remember anything related to those people?
Dr. Willie Smith came, and he was a very dear friend of Dr. Hynek's. They were old and close friends, and they looked like cosmic twins. They were about the same height, stature, looked just alike. He was from Florida. He was an astrophysicist. And they were just good fellows, Dr. Smith, I understand, got some of Dr. Hynek's files when Dr. Hynek died. Uh-huh. They were very close, and he did visit him that summer, and Dr. Hynek went to Florida to visit him also. They would work together in cahoots all the time.
Okay, so both of them were involved in I'm assuming the work, what you say work, it was investigating UFO reports?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What about crashes? Did you ever see information about crashed discs? Did he ever
We saw
go out?
a film. There was a film that we got into the center that we looked at.